How many women would think and act differently if they weren't under the umbrella of religion and its rigid gender expectations? How many would put themselves first before men they know, men they do not know, and the male voices with 1,000 instructions of how they should live their lives?
The wealthy and privileged, who live in a heaven that's been built by your labor and your suffering, have managed to convince you that your time to live in heaven will happen after you die. The wealthy and privileged have managed to convince you that suffering, a suffering that they themselves don't experience, a suffering that they themselves depend on to live their wealthy lifestyles, is just a normal part of life, is just God's plan, is just a test so you'll get into heaven later. This quote perfectly summarizes religion. The people that built their heaven on your land are telling you yours is in the sky. The more I see religion for what it truly is, a tool that is used to manipulate and control an entire population by oppressors, the more I can't unsee it. Who really benefits from you believing that when you die, you'll go to heaven? Who benefits from you believing that suffering is just a normal part of life? Who actually benefits from you believing in these things? Do you yourself benefit, or do your oppressors benefit?
So, believe it or not, for the first time in modern American history, more young men than women identify as religious.
Hey, imagine there's a female god in the sky, and she sends her daughter, Jess, down to Earth. And Jess has these 12 female besties, and they write a book, which, among a bunch of other things, explains that men were specifically created and brought to Earth to serve women. And men also can't have any leadership roles in this church. Like, they can't be priests or bishops or popes. And I know what you're thinking, that honestly sounds kind of shady and sexist, but it's not. It's actually a way to honor men, honestly. And plus, there's a bunch of strong male characters in the book, like the Virgin Marcus. I feel like generally men would be lining up at the doors to join this organization. They would probably send their sons to like organized schools just to study Jess's book. This makes sense to me.
Y'all, can we talk about how a large majority of women who are in the church or overly religious, they lack a lot of the interpersonal, like day-to-day skills of being a human being. I remember being a child, and the women who were the most caught up in being a Christian or going to church were the same women calling other women out of their name, the same women who went home and just like put all their steam, all their rage onto their children. Like the complete opposite, a complete 360. You have a lot of churchy women, 20, 25, 30, 35 plus, who are still finding themselves in abusive or weird relationships. They in church every day, but they getting used and can't even see the fact that they're getting used. You know what I mean? They're in church every day, but they don't understand how their energy rubs off on other people, or how to, I don't know, just do basic things as a person. And I will say, growing up religious myself, we were really sheltered. Religious women are really sheltered. You aren't allowed to date like a normal teen. You aren't allowed to explore and really get to know who you are like a normal teen. So you end up becoming a 40, 50 plus year old woman who still don't know herself, who still don't understand or can't understand why she isn't living a life that she wants to live, and therefore just judges other women that she sees, you know?
We need to stop normalizing women getting an education. Education is literally ruining our sisters. Most of them don't even know how to run a household. Most of them aren't marriage material.
Men like this like to say, oh, we need to stop making sure that women can go to school, that they get an education, they should be homemakers and nothing else, while completely ignoring that there is already a country where that is the case. And I should know because that is where I am ethnically from. Interestingly enough, the women there are not very happy about their education being taken away. They don't feel fulfilled in their feminine role. They don't feel grateful for being able to be at home to take care of the kids and do nothing else but that. For almost 3 years now, women in Afghanistan are are living that reality. So my guy, while you are making up these fake scenarios, let's talk about the reality of women who actually go through that, and surprise, surprise, it does not benefit them but men like you who control them in the system. The self-unaliving rates, especially when it comes to women, have risen. You only get education until 6th grade, nothing afterwards. You have girls saying that it is a curse to be born as a girl because they have no future, they have no education, they have no life. They want to go to university, they want to become doctors, which is also a weird thing, because in your video you say that we don't need more people becoming doctors. Disgusting. I have heard many things, but I have never heard anybody say disgusting after talking about somebody becoming a doctor. An occupation where your main focus is to save human lives. And you say disgusting right afterwards? I genuinely want every single doctor in his life, male or female, to refuse to treat him after you get sick the next time and simply say, ugh, disgusting. Anyways, let's get back to Afghanistan, the country where his fantasy became reality. When you take away education for women and you take away their future, the only thing you have is control over their lives, their livelihoods, because they are nothing without you. And then of course you don't think about all the women who don't even have men in their lives to even take care of them. Education is not ruining your sisters, it's men like you. Wannabe influencers who get their livelihood by marketing their bodies, but then shaming women for literally getting degrees. I'm gonna tell you a little secret. If a woman gets a degree and she does not want to be with you, it is not that degree's fault, it is your fault. If the only women who are willing to spend their lives with you and to cater to you are women who are naive and uneducated, that does not show that you are a good Muslim or good man or good anything. Also, he expects women to, stay at home, to only take care of the children, to clean the house, to take care of them while they are the ones at work. But they don't think about the fact that in this economy, for most people, that is not possible. Most Muslim, Middle Eastern, Central Asian families, whatever you want to call them, have more than one kid. I would say most families that I know have like 3 to 4 kids. There are not many people who are able to take care of 5 to 6 people with one income. That is not the reality of our economy. And of course, if you take care of those kids, you don't just want to, go by with a bare minimum. You want to be able to send them to sports. You want to be able to treat them a little, go on a vacation every few years. Maybe do something with your wife where you treat her, get her things that she might want or need, not just things that are essential. But then you of course also have to save for your retirement because most countries don't have good retirement funds for the elderly. If this influencer lifestyle is going great for you, you do you, and that's amazing. But that is not the reality for most average normal income families. You guys want stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home wives, but then you cannot afford to give them the life that a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home wife deserves. I'm currently in law school and I work at a family law firm. And as somebody who is in that position, I will tell you one thing. I will tell Muslim women one thing. When you get married to these men, make sure you don't just get an Islamic marriage, especially when you're in the West and you live in a country where that marriage is not viewed as an actual marriage. Because that is also something I hear a lot of these dude bros say. You don't need these Western papers. As long as you have God's blessings, you don't need anything else. Meh, wrong. Once he leaves you for another woman, once things break apart, and once he has enough of you, God's blessings will not get you anything. In the eyes of the state, you're basically girlfriend and boyfriend. You will get no privileges. I have seen it time and time again, women coming into our law firm being like, I have been married to this man for 15, 20 years, and we're like, okay, where are the marriage papers? And they're like, oh, we just had a nikah. We were not legally married. I'm like, I'm sorry, I cannot help you that much. You can get child support if you have a kid, but for you and your expenses, you can basically get nothing. These men love to say Islamic rights left, right, and center until it's time to leave a woman. So please, as somebody who has to deal with a lot of these cases, and I genuinely just want the best for you, make sure you get married legally. Get your nikah, do whatever you want, but also get a marriage certificate in whatever country you are. And you know what? Better yet, a prenup. If one thing working in a law firm has shown me is always get a prenup. Having an education is a safety net for a woman, and it also helps women get out of dangerous situations. I have had to deal with women who stayed with abusive partners for a very long time because when they were young, those husbands told them, you don't need an education, I'm always going to take care of you. Just depend on me. So they stopped all of their aspirations. They became those housewives, those mothers that you want. And now you leave them high and dry. You can also be a housewife and have an education. That is something that can then help you if anything goes wrong. I also saw another video of a woman talking about how she is a widow. If she would not have had that education, she would be on the streets with her children. Her husband was perfect. He took care of her. He took care of her kids, but he unfortunately passed away. Those are things that just happen. And if you would actually care about those so-called sisters you're talking about, people you're supposed to care about, you would think of all of these things, but you only care and think about yourself. But let's see his response to this. I'm sure he responded in a very mature and enlightening manner.
It's actually been a lot of Zionists that have replied against that video. Zionists, like on their account, it'll say Zionist.
You're not embarrassed. This is very embarrassing for you, my guy. Is that what high testosterone means to you, my guy? Trying to deflect from your actions and the valid criticism you have been getting left, right, and center, and mostly by Muslim women or men who just call you silly because that is what you are. And you just blame it on, oh, I'm just, being attacked by Zionists. They're the ones who are, being mean to me. That means I am so valid, because if it's only Zionists against me, that means I am in the right. Yeah, those so-called sisters and brothers that I'm supposed to care about and that I'm supposed to love and cherish, I'm ignoring their videos. But I am curious, since I very openly am not a Zio. I have a playlist called this with over 150 videos on here and over 1,000 stories like that on my IG, so I am clearly not the people you're talking about. So what is your response to me? Who are you gonna blame now? Is hiding behind Zios the high testosterone things you have been talking about? Is that the manly and truly masculine thing you embody? Is that what real, strong men do? By the way, I am fully aware that my video is not going to make him change his opinion. He wants a naive and vulnerable woman to be trapped in his household, and hopefully he will not get that. So no, I do not care about his feelings or his thoughts, but I care about women. So I am telling you, if people like that talk like this, stay away from them. There are amazing Muslim men out there who will uplift you, who will love you, and who will not call you disgusting because you're getting a degree and are becoming a doctor. As I said before, I am in law school, and I am studying with a lot of beautiful Muslim women. Some of their biggest supporters are their families, their fathers, their brothers, their cousins. Men like the dude that I just stitched know that the only type of way they will have a relationship with a woman is if they keep them uneducated, if they keep them naive, and if they keep them beneath them. And they will try to sell it to you by claiming that this is what religion is supposed to be. Men like this are the reason why a lot of religions get bad reputations, because they weaponize them. As an Afghan woman, I should know, and it's also very telling that they talk like this. How their sisters are doing wrong things by getting educations and becoming smarter and more independent. But they never call out their brothers in Afghanistan who are hurting women and who are oppressing them and have been oppressing them for years now. Then it's all silence. All of the sudden it is not about, doing the right thing in the name of religion. All of the sudden it is not about protecting the core values of your religion. And you can tell that they do not care by the way that they talk. He said, we have to normalize women not getting an education, not we have to normalize women being more comfortable and having it easier being stay-at-home moms, being stay-at-home wives. He doesn't want to give you choice or make it better or easier for you to do something you actually want to do. He wants to control you. And not just you, but all women. And also, please, for the love of God, stop using Palestine and Zios and whatever else to make yourself look better when there has never been anything good about you in the first place.
Some men believe in the subjugation of women because religion often connotes the belief that women are only created to be men's helpmates. And as women have more legal freedoms and access to independence, many men are trying harder than ever to use religion to keep women under their control.
Do you know that the society tells you that if your husband is stressing you, pack your load and go? But do you know that the real heroes of many homes are the mothers who have chosen to stay because of the children? What the society tells you is that your child is not enough reason for you to go through what you're going through. It is a wrong culture. So we are raising girls who are ready to opt out once it is stressful. So we are having marriages that are very weak. It is no longer for better for us. If God has blessed you with a mother who stayed, don't let her die before you know what God gave you. That if you were in her shoes, you would have left and she stayed. Sometimes we don't know what we are talking about. And there are no two reasons why they are staying than my children. May God preserve them. Do you know what happens to the children when the mother is missing? The mother is the one that brings the part of care, affection. Each time I have to deal with boys and I discover that I'm not getting through them, I start asking, what happened to their mothers? When mothers are missing, children struggle, and they struggle big time. Many people are suicidal and depressed. Just one word, one phone call from their mothers. You are
actually doing your child a disservice by not packing your things and leaving that place. Yes, you should pack and go because of your children. Because it is actually unhealthy to raise a child in such an environment. And you know why? Your children are learning the irresponsibilities of their father. So you are training your children to become irresponsible adults in the society. And they are not just learning the irresponsibility of their father. They are learning that women can be treated poorly and women should stay where they are treated poorly. These children that you are raising will go ahead and marry other people's children and expect them to manage their irresponsible behavior. Why? Because they watch their mother manage their father's irresponsible behavior. Now, instead of teaching men to do better, to be better, to treat their wives better, you are teaching women to stay and manage abusive relationships. You are teaching women to have so much lack of self-confidence that they stay in places where they are not treated right. Teach men to be better. Teach men to do better so they can have a loving, responsible marriage and home, so they can raise responsible children. Women who stay behind because of their children end up being miserable, unhappy, and angry. And they end up raising irresponsible kids because there is no way that you are going to raise a sane child in such an uneasy environment.
Okay, I'm not letting this one slide. If you're a young woman in this country trying to date a young man, and you think this headline that for the first time in a long time that there are more religious young men than women does not apply to you or have political ramifications, let's sit down. If you've been around here long enough, you've probably guessed that I like to look at the politics of fashion, the politics of dating, and as a Christian who has fought very hard to find a place in the faith as a Black woman and as a woman specifically, it doesn't matter if you're Christian or not Christian, what is happening inside church communities, and especially one of the most politically significant groups of people who get to determine what women do with their lives, their time, and their bodies, this matters, especially for the future. There's been this idea that as time passes and we get older and people grow up, that these old-fashioned, really repressive ideas about, using God in the church to treat women badly or Black people badly, it's just going to die off. It's not. It's not going to die off because what a lot of these Southern Baptist churches have to offer young men right now is a sense of safety, superiority, and security in a shifting America. It's obvious that things are changing. There used to be a time where the ideal American and the person who had all this power, all this social power, all this political power, and was the default norm was somebody who could be identified as a young white man. In fact, that often wasn't even an identity these people had to think about. It's only been recently that young men are aware of the fact that they, as men, have inherited a society that has these gendered privileges and these assumptions and these biases that have worked in their favor. Of course, they don't think that these biases are, really working in their favor now simply because they are being criticized or critiqued or challenged. There is always a time in history when a people group that has been other or has been dehumanized or has been made less than the reigning dominant person, once they start to step into their power and they start to step into their time, their space, and their energy, agency, and the society actually starts to affirm and validate that, even if it's kicking and screaming, the original dominant group feels fear, or they feel insecure, or this is not the world that they were raised for or trained for. It's an obvious thing that many of you have seen in dating, where these men were raised by men and women who put up with a lot of nonsense from other men. This weekend, I watched the documentary For Our Daughters, which profiles, I think, about 6 of some of the foremost women that are speaking up and out about the Southern Baptist Church and the evangelical cultures that perpetuate and protect abusers, and then lead to groups of people who can then defend and elect abusers into high places of power in the American democracy. This documentary also connected that some of these fringe ideas that limit women's autonomy and limit women's humanity, or even their access to democracy and political power, they've been considered very separate from these normal churches. But in all actuality, their theology ties them together. And many of these churches, even though they won't say it out loud, will depend on these so-called fringe people and fringe movements to actually create the kind of world and politics that they will approve of. So they might not say anything, they may not be marching, they might not be protesting, but when those other places put those candidates in place, or they put policy and theology in place, all these churches and the men that they are raising up will support it. There's so much to say on this, but the main key thing that I want you to take away is that there is an idea in church communities like this, I grew up with it too, where if you're outside of God's design or plan for humanity and something bad happens to you, or your freedoms are limited, or somebody hurts you or abuses you, it's your fault. Once you step out of living in a way that these people approve of, anything that happens to you is fair game. And they owe you nothing. What this means is that there are generations of these men that get raised up who believe that respect and dignity is only given to certain kinds of women. And what they do to women outside of their communities is another matter. And it's not something to prosecute, and it's not something to hold them accountable for. I'm in a Christian faith tradition that adheres very closely to what Jesus's actions were, how they were revolutionary in how he treated and dignified women. And I have this wealth of history from Black women who have done the kinds of theology and thinking and intellectual work that have made our tradition more inclusive and stronger, and what I believe is definitely closer to the heart of God. That said, there are enough men who will not do that work and will not actually respect any of that as Christian or as legitimate, and will happily take any theology that puts them in supreme leadership over women. One thing that's becoming clear is just being very open about that does not really work out for them very well. So there are people who will kind of keep low, they'll hide that, they'll say that it's fine to have an equal relationship when you guys are girlfriend and boyfriend, but the second you become husband and wife, that changes. If young people, young men especially, are finding communities that hold them accountable, that make them realize and are connected to a God that connects them to all other beings and creatures, or they are in a situation where they are being asked to grow and mature spiritually, emotionally, and socially, that's a great thing. But what I fear is that a church group like the Southern Baptist Convention and all that denomination, lots of evangelical places, is what the documentary that we looked at this week has shown, which is anytime there's a moment to actually hold men accountable for their actions, we hide, we get rid of the women, we, push the woman down, or we just shuffle people around. That's something that's of concern. One of the things that annoys me the most is this idea that just because something is Christian, or I'm a Christian, or, when people get into church, like, oh, I'm a Christian, I can't be racist, I can't be sexist, I can't be this because I follow Jesus and God is good, is that this shuts down any self-reflection. It shuts down the critical thinking. It shuts down the ways you could look and say, how has colonialism or any of these forms of prejudices tainted my understanding of the scriptures and my relationship to God and other people? Since most of these communities have not done that work, I don't think that they're suddenly doing it now. So what I'm saying is we, the people out in the wild, the people who still have the right to vote, who still can move around, who still can do things, need to take it very seriously when Christian churches and people leading these boys and people influencing these boys say things like, in a great American democracy, women wouldn't have the right to vote. In an ideal American situation, women would always one-way submit to their husbands. In a great American situation, women would go back to being used for what they were made for, which is outbreeding other religious groups. When people show you who they are and what they do and who they will hurt and sell out the first time, believe them. In the documentary For Our Daughters, one of the things that becomes really clear is that these people, these kind of political movements, these kind of social movements require our silence. They require our compliance, and they require us at all. They need our bodies and they need our time to achieve the domination that they want to achieve. Do not provide it to them. Do not provide it to them easily either. That's not to say if you've been victimized, it's your fault. It's never your fault. But we can make this harder for future generations to do the same kind of harm. I hope and pray for the kind of emotional, spiritual, and communal relationship that is actually a blessing to these men and other people and the people that are around them and the women that are around them. I trust God, I just don't trust man.
I truly did not know that you were the one until I almost blocked you. How did you just know he was the one? To be honest, I didn't until God told me, because you had cheated. And so, yeah, we're really, yeah, I said absolutely not. And so I remember,
I was a young man.
You were a young man rolling around the city.
That's okay.
Can I say that? Oh.
I don't understand this God that people talk about all the time. Because it seems like this God hates women. Because why would this God tell this lady that she should marry this guy that is cheating on her even while they were dating? And sometimes when women tell me they have been abused and I ask them why they have chosen to stay, they will say things like, well, God has not released me. God said I should stay for now. But this same God never tells men to stay with a cheating wife. This God is somehow biased, right? When it comes to protecting the interest of men, he's always biased. He doesn't seem to care about the well-being of women. And I'm wondering if he is really God, or if it's just something that men have created to keep women bound. Bye.
When I shared this clip of patriarchal Pastor Joel Webbin controlling his family's bathroom habits, I got a reaction.
I have 4 people in my life that I dictate the hours in their day. I dictate what time they go to the bathroom, when we eat, what we wear.
So many of you commented in disbelief that the level of control went that far. But please remember, there is absolutely no personal autonomy for women and children in Christian patriarchy. And that includes basic privacy or responding to a human need. That's why learning embodiment and responding to your body's most basic needs is a big deal for survivors. In those high control environments, it can be subtle. Maybe mommy is just not going to interrupt daddy's agenda at family worship time. Maybe it looks like elimination timing for little babies. Maybe it's no, you may not be excused from the table. Or at night, children just not allowed to get up. Yes, survivors from this lifestyle have to retrain themselves to respond to the urge to urinate. Getting up and deciding for yourself when you're going to use the bathroom is a pretty basic freedom. When you first get out, all those little freedoms are so novel and exciting. Eventually, it can be tempting to forget that it was ever that high control. Except now, the patriarchy feels so confident, they don't even try to hide it. Please take it from the people who lived it. Everything about you will be under their control.
If you get a man drunk enough, he will tell you the truth about anything. So I need to tell you guys the truth that was admitted to me by this man who was drunk like 3 weeks ago, and we were just having a regular conversation. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it because he basically blatantly admitted that the reason why him and so many other men are jealous of women is because they feel like women can control their lust, and they feel like men are controlled by their lust. When he admitted that to me, I was not surprised. I knew this about men, but what was surprising is what clicked in my mind after. And basically what clicked in my mind after is that religion is a lustful man's tool to control women, because women are not controlled by their lustful urges or their desires. And men know this. Deep down inside, they know this. Whether they want to admit it or not, doesn't matter. Men realize that women can control their lust and they can't control their own lust. So what they decided to do is, in order to have a sense of control and power, they decided that it was women's fault that they're so lustful, so it's women who must be controlled. And as someone who used to be in a religious community, in a religious family, and like heavily involved in religion, I can tell you from experience that the more religious a man is, the more lustful he is, typically. Because lustful men need the fear of God in their hearts. They need the fear of punishment. They need the fear of hell and fire in order to not be disgusting animals. They know that their lust is disgusting. They know that their urges are weird. They know this. But instead of reflecting on what they can do to be better and how to express their sexual urges in a healthy, creative way, they've decided that women are the ones to blame, and that in order for them to avoid being controlled by their lust or by their sexual urges, they need to control women. You know, this actually makes a lot of sense when I think about my dad and my upbringing, because my dad was a very controlling, obsessive, religious freak. So I grew up thinking like, oh, he's so devoted, he loves God, this, that. Until I strayed from the religion and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I saw how deeply angry he got about that. And I was like, oh, it was always about control. It was never about you actually fearing God. It was about you fearing loss of control. So using this concept of God, of a male God that's in the sky watching my every move, trying to plant a man in my head permanently to observe my actions and judge me, gave you a sense of control. Me rejecting that and deciding that actually I don't need this invisible man's point of view in my head nonstop in order for me to be a good person, when I realized that about myself, it scared the shit out of him. And it scares the shit out of most of them, which is why the first thing men do when women liberate themselves is take away women's rights. Is try to get them married off because of some religion or some man or some this or some that. It always comes down to women's lives being limited and restricted in order for men to feel some sort of sense of control. I genuinely don't know what it's going to take for these guys to realize that they do have control. The control is just over themselves, not anybody else. You have no control over any other man or woman on this planet, period. You can control yourself though, but that's not enough for them. because they don't actually want to control themselves. They don't actually want to take accountability. They don't actually want to improve. They don't even want to understand themselves. They want everybody around them to cater to them and their desires and their needs so that they can feel a little powerful, so that they can feel like they have some sort of control over something, instead of just controlling themselves and being better. And I think that's really sad and really pathetic.
Oh, this is delicious. A Christian nationalist group had a conference and they were having a singles night. Turns out singles nights in Gilead just aren't real enticing to the ladies.
We actually have room for 5 more single women who are 25 years or older so that they can come and join us both at the conference and for the singles event that will be taking place at the conference. We are hoping to fill up our singles event. And finding godly Christian single women has been, I'll just say, much more difficult than finding godly Christian single men.
That is Pastor Joel Webben. He is one of the architects of Project 2025. Turns out, in his little Handmaid's Tale wet dream, he can't get women to sign up for their singles night. I mean, it couldn't possibly have anything to do with saying things like this, could it?
In general, I don't want to see women in the public sphere. You mean they shouldn't hold political office? Correct. You don't want to see them podcasting? Correct. What about in the marketplace, with, 9 to 5, careers? No, not that either. Like, I don't want to see women holding positions in the public square.
Yeah, it's really puzzling why you can't find women to sign up for your little under his eye circle jerk. Mystery of the ages.
No matter how educated a woman is, her husband is her brain. Write it. You need it. No woman is smart. Women, there's one scripture you've never seen. Maybe you want to question what I'm saying. 1 Timothy 2 from verse 13. Yeah, women, let me just come to you because you are doing harm. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived fell into transgression. Adam fell because he was in love with the woman, not because he could be deceived. No matter how educated the woman is, how rich she is, her brain is a man. The truth is, what is destroying our world today is women, but it's men that allowed it. If you don't know how to lead the women, the world will be destroyed. So leadership is what women need. When they are not led and spoken to, they are open to foreign spirit.
It is very sad to see that the church of God has been reduced to this. A church is a place where you are supposed to go and hear the message of love, kindness, empathy, message of Christ. But now when you go to most churches today, the only thing they preach there is patriarchy and misogyny. They literally teach you subjugation of women. Women this, women that, women should, women have, women are, women owe, every time women. And to think that most of their members are women. You can see a woman in this congregation nodding. Literally nodding. I don't understand how you benefit so much from women, but you treat them like trash. Women literally do everything in church. Women provide emotional labor, physical labor, financial labor, everything. They pour their heart out to make sure that the church thrives. And that is because women love community. You benefit from the gifts of women. You benefit from the labor of women. You literally collect their money. But you treat them like trash. You treat them with so much disrespect and disregard. For you to have the audacity to come on the altar and say that women don't have a brain, it is a man that has a brain that thinks for a woman. You even went as far as looking for a Bible verse to validate that gibberish. Yeah, you look for Bible verse, you quote them, you validate, say woman no get brain. Now man, they think for woman. And a woman is in your congregation nodding. All I can say is boycott these pastors. Boycott these churches until they start valuing you, until they start seeing you as a human being that deserve love, that deserve respect.
Me, that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Yeah. So he would call me out my name, it wouldn't bother me because I allowed God's voice to be louder than his. And when I was going through transition of him not coming home on the weekends, not being there, telling me I hate you, I'll never love you, I wish I never married you. Right. I knew that life and death is in the power of the tongue through the word of God. So I would say, you will love me one day. We will have a good marriage one day. And although he would go out for weekends, I would literally help him get ready to go meet a side chick by ironing his clothes and getting him ready for the night. And these are all things I was graced to do. I would not encourage anybody to do that unless you are graced by God to do this. But
and that man is sitting there looking at her like, wow, this is one dumb. I have a friend who
husband cheats on her regularly. And she told me once that he would use church and prayer as a way to kind of like wrangle her back in and to like make her feel bad for not wanting to be with him. It's not funny. It's really not funny, but I literally cannot help but to laugh. You are saying that this man who was supposed to love you is calling you out your name, but you allowed God to be louder to drown out your husband calling you out your name. And you would iron your husband's clothes so that he could go see his side bitch. And that he was telling you and showing you that he did not love you and that he did not want to be with you. And you said you will one day. Because God... So why God didn't talk to him? Why God only ever talked to... If this isn't proof that organized religion and the church is meant to subjugate women, I don't get on here and talk about religion, because y'all, this is the level of chokehold y'all be in. When anyone comes on here and says any valid criticism of the church, not of God, of the church, that is the chokehold y'all be in, ironing y'all husband's clothes for your side. Y'all get in the comment and defend the most ridiculous shit in the name of God. It's so funny. It's so funny because I've never, ever seen a man say that God told him to stay with his cheating wife. I've never seen a woman say, yes, my wife got pregnant by another man and God told me to stay. Never. My thing is, right? Y'all don't think the devil talks to people? You really think a being that is supposed to love us and care for us and truly wants the best for us would want you to stay in a situation like that? No, honest question. A lot of you confuse God with that little person in your head. God didn't tell you to do that. You wanted to stay with that dirty man. You wanted to stay with that good for nothing man. And you convinced yourself. You convinced yourself to do that. And while I might not be the most religious person, I have my own relationship with religion. But I don't know, blaming it on God just feels a little wrong. And I just know he hates her.
Baby, blink twice if you're tired of that man cheating on you.
He told me, you're my starter, but I got other ones on the bench, And, what else would you tell me, baby?
That you're my point guard.
Yes, and that you love me.
But I like them.
Right. So I was in a relationship I was okay with that as long as I was first. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that. I want, the women to know out there. I didn't know Jesus. I didn't, know who I was. What'd you say, babe? I had no value.
You had no value. You had no worth. You did not know who you were. He said you didn't know your self-worth. Right.
And I'm 17.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm a teenager. And I was preconditioned to think this way because my mother divorced my father for infidelity. And I'd always thought if you could just forgive him, our family would stay together.
Oh, that's deep.
So that was not a deal breaker for me, as long as I knew about it. Now, he knows if I found out about it, we'd have a problem.
And y'all, that's literally not the most ridiculous thing this couple has ever espoused.
No point system. well, if you take out the trash, if you help me clean up, you help with the kids, you might get some tonight. No, the devil is a lie. You make yourself available for him because he will find somebody out there, some trick, some hoe, some homewrecker that will give him exactly what he needs with no rules.
Whew. A mess.
Look at somebody and say, Jesus.
Jesus for real. Because, girl, what is you even talking about? And you guys, I wish this was just the only 2 anecdotes of them saying ridiculous things at the pulpit, but it's not. Now, they did a sit-down interview where they talked about their marriage for 32 years. And essentially, she was talking about how for 32 years, this man has been degrading her. And if she knows all the things that he's doing, then she doesn't feel as bad. He just sitting there looking goofy like, yep, I'm gonna keep disrespecting her because why not? She looked crazy and he looked crazy. And they gonna look crazy together on Easter.
As wives, submit to your own husband as you do for the Lord. I love that God says your own husband. If you're single, leave our husbands alone. Find your own.
Who's in the pulpit to tell the women to leave your husband alone? Sister First Lady, it's not the women. It's your man.
I can live with mama for a little bit till you get back on your feet. And man of God, if she's not doing what you want her to do as a wife, let her know you're dirty. My house stinks. Oh, Jesus. Can I get a hot meal that's not frozen first? Can you make a pot roast? Can you fry chicken? Can you clean collars? Come on, somebody. Can you make a biscuit? These things matter. You don't think they matter, but they matter. I'm going to tell you one thing. He might be gone early in our marriage, but when he came home, I had something piping hot on the stove. And I said it had something piping hot in the bedroom too. Amen. Praise God. I had to compete for a little bit, but I ain't competing no more.
Give that man some pasta. Give that man some peace. And I'll let y'all fill in the other pea.
Imagine getting up, getting ready to go to church on a Sunday. You've been going through, you need a little pick-me-up. You need encouragement. You need uplifting. Pastors, get up in the pulpit and tell you that your man don't want you because your house dirty. To tell your man to tell you your house dirty. Even though you might be depressed or you might be just had a baby and life is hard sometimes. Pastor says, get that man some pasta and get that man some. It's all centered around what we men need.
The 3 P's.
And you know what that woman needs? She needs dedication.
Yes.
Some dollars. And I'm going to let y'all figure out the other D.
I ain't never seen nothing like it.